Namaste, namaste to this wonderful gentleman sitting before us, and also to all of you, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Deep Dialogues. And that is exactly what it is. It is a conversation, not a presentation. It is a dialogue with remarkable global soul stewards. And Oscar is an extraordinary exponent of the Peru traditions of shamanism. And he's very willing, and I've also bequested him to open our conversation with a beautiful shamanistic prayer. Over to you, sir.
You're invited to open your hearts, relax your bodies, and transcend your minds and receive this runasimi, Quechua prayer into every fiber of your soul. Haili wilka hanak pachamang, tiksikung kanchik, chaska pungkumanta. Tiayukui teksemuyoh hatung kaipang, sumach wilka pachakamak, nyokaiku sonkoikuna tupakui, kausaikuna kawakui. Hamai nasi warkenti sonkotikak, futuininta apumui runakunak. Kausay niyo, munay niyo, kanchay niyo, amurayku ina. Nyokayku kanchay parunakuna, pachamamak churinkuna. Haili ayu runakuna, unkuipi chaskapunku teksemuyok Pachakuti Mesa hampika mayokuna aknana muyupi hinaya. Loosely translated, this Quechua prayer from the highlands of the Andes translates into the following. Praises and victory to the sacred heavenly stargate of our origins. Welcome, great power of the universe. Sublimely sacred creative source of all worlds, meet yourself in our hearts, see yourself in our lives. Please, royal hummingbird, bring the blossoming of the flower of the heart to humankind. With life, with love, and with light did we come here. We are people of the light and children of the earth. Praises and victory to all our relations born from the stargate that is sacred, universal, shamanic, ceremonial hoops. Hinaya, so mote it be. Thank you so much, Stuart, for allowing me.
Oh, wow. This is so beautiful. Thank you very, very much. You've blessed so many vital energies of this potential discourse, this wonderful dialogue. Thank you. And have brought in all of the spirit of your wonderful tradition. There is much talk at this moment. I hadn't planned to go into this, but just having heard the prayer, I could see stargates opening. And there you are revealing within one aspect, or actually on two occasions within the prayer, the nature of how your peoples arose on this planet through the hoops, through the great stargates. Do you have an awareness of any particular star system that speaks with your people, or are there a series?
Certainly, within the tradition that I am privileged to honor and transmit its perennial wisdom to the modern Western acculturated peoples of this planet, we have four primary star systems that are intimately linked to the creation stories and myths of origin of the Inca and pre-Inca, more the pre-Inca people. And they are Orion, they are the Pleiades, they are Gemini, and Sirius. Those are the four.
Right.
And we understand that primarily from the Orion constellation and the Pleiadian star cluster, the first peoples, the first star-seeded peoples of this planet found their way to the coastal area of South America at that time, because the Andes hadn't risen yet. We're talking about millions of years ago. And from there made their way up once there was the great cataclysms that rose the Andes from the depths of the ocean. Then Lake Titicaca was formed, that the highest navigable lake in the world. And upon the shores of Lake Titicaca is where the first civilizations of our star-awakened two-leggeds emerged. And from there dissipated throughout the rest of Heart Island, which we call South America, and made their way north and settling in various other places. We also have an understanding of the great land of Lemuria in the Pacific, and also of the Atlantean and Hyperborean periods. We speak about those in our prophecies and in our myths of origin as well. And as you well know yourself, these pre-Diluvian civilizations are key to understanding our true human history, especially at this juncture of great transformation on planet.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Tracy. Absolutely wonderful. And of course, again, you're opening up so many gates of intelligence within the spirit of your peoples and of the ancient ones. I see many spirit beings coming forth. So it's very touching to be here with you, very, very moving to be here with you and to hear you speak. As you know, you've done a little bit of research into who I am, that I was approached by 40 years ago, I was approached by 12 angels that refer to themselves as being the angels of Atlantis. So they taught me for about 15 or 20 years. You know, when I first met them, of course, I was so imbued by the wonder and the awesome intelligence that they shared with me instantaneously, that I wanted to teach them immediately, like a lovesick teenager, you know. And they said, no, you will not. We're going to prepare you over the next 20 odd years, which indeed is what happened. So I began to understand more of the traditions that you are referring to, or the wisdom traditions is what I mean, going all the way back into Mu, all the way back into Atlantis. Do you feel that your peoples arose from both civilizations or from Atlantis, moving west?
Primarily their relationship with the great island of Mu in the Pacific at the time. Although I must say that when we speak about the shining ones, we speak about these beings that were not fully in physical manifestation. They were luminous etheric formations, pure consciousness, pure radiance. And as a result of finding themselves in a three-dimensional, more dense molecular substructure, such as this physical material universe that we populate at present, they learn to go ahead and adopt an anthropomorphic type of presence. Yet ultimately, they did not need bodies. So there are many tales and stories and very precise teachings that come from those that were the light, those that had not yet needed a body. And these are the sources, very, very ancient sources that not many people have access to. But you see depicted in the iconography and the cave artistry and the paintings and throughout South America and the world, as you well know. These beings that came from behind the veil, from that liminal in-between imaginal space, where spirit and matter fuses into one blissful experience of cosmic consciousness. And that is the core to open the heart to the love that's necessary to practice shamanism. For shamanism really was born from the first human impulse to care for something or someone more or equal to yourself. That impulse in humans is what will save us today, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd love to touch on this because, of course, we're meeting at an extraordinary time in the gestation of our world, and how we're seeing on scene levels much conflict, confusion, and horror taking place. But we also know, you and I, and many of our brothers and sisters, we know that this is a very unique time where there actually is a great shift of consciousness back into respecting the old traditions, the wisdom traditions, and particularly the element that's so key within your work, I believe, which is the nature of handing on the stories, the great stories of yore, handing them on, so that they live within our people's bodies rather than just working from the head, that they live within our people's hearts. And I'd love to hear more about what you feel you can share with us about that particular aspect of the Shining Ones. I see the parallel, for example, in the field of reference that I have with Atlantis and also with Egypt, which is somewhere that I've spent a tremendous amount of time, over 50 years of being a pilgrim there. And so I'm very aware of the Shemsu Hor, the Achus Shemsu Hor, who were, I believe, of a similar description to the one that you've just offered us, that they were portal keepers between this world and Septibi, the great world of the paradise,
Mm-hmm.
the overworld. And they come forth. So we know that there is this remembering at this time. We're deep within our bodies, and it's happening in many different ways to trigger the deep remembering. How significant is your work in relation to the accumulation of experiences that will allow us to deeply remember those origins?
Well, to unpack everything that you've said, my good brother, we must go back to the harmonic convergence, August 16th to 18th, 1987, that both yourself and myself experienced pivotal changes, pivotal awakenings, crucial disclosures of the veil and that which lies behind, and dedicated our lives not only as vocation but avocation to deepening our understanding of the Akashic records and communing with beings that are unseen and non-physical. And through that, received great guidance and also instruction as to how to be of service without allowing the stinking, drunken monkey mind, the ego mind, to take over. Because it is a journey and it's a process, and there are many pitfalls and challenges and great obstacles that one must overcome before showing up in a way that one's words are really medicine for the soul of those who hear them. As William Shakespeare says, and which you're familiar with, is tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons and stones, and good in everything. And that's what storytelling is. And the way that we approach storytelling in the Andes and in the coastal and Amazonian regions is through ritual. And ritualizing story deliteralizes, it makes it non-literal. So it allows it to become metaphoric. It allows it to become sensorial. It allows it to become expansive of one's consciousness. So poetry, more than prose, is what's needed in this world today to nudge us to become aware of those codes, of those light codes that are within our chromosomal structure. And with every non-ordinary state of consciousness that we attain through the shamanic ceremonial practices of the Pachakuti Mesa tradition, we amplify our ability to become antennas, very, very sensitive instruments, able to position ourselves in a manner that harnesses very elevated Empyrean vibrational frequencies, seventh dimensional vibrational frequencies, that of Christ consciousness, to come through us and into our ritual artifacts, into the circle of people that we serve, and in Aini and sacred reciprocity, returned to the source. So this is a constant movement, transformation. It's almost like a dance of Qigong and Tai Chi that we enter into not almost, it's exactly like it, that we enter into. So that's why we call shamanic healing an art more than a science. I trust that that response opens up more areas of exploration, my good friend.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. You have such a breadth of wisdom, and the way that you articulate it, you bring so many wonderful light codes in to share with us. It's absolutely beautiful and gives us a great understanding about the nature of how storytelling, as you and I know, really is beginning to reach a level of paucity in so-called civilized society. And that there you are, and many of your brothers and sisters within the traditions of South America are really leading us forward with the great stories so that our bodies open within the ritualized form of behaviors, so that we really enter into the substance of how we can pay obeisance to the altar, that place where we are altered. And I know that you speak very largely about the substance of the release of prophecy from the harmonic convergence and the 144,000 rainbow light warriors in relation to the movement of the eagle and the condor. I wonder if you could possibly touch on this.
Certainly. Gladly. Thank you. So, 1987, August, I was invited as representative of Hart Island to a gathering, one of the many gatherings at sacred sites around the world that were initiated by Jose and Miriam Arguelles at the time, that resulted in the harmonic convergence. So the resonance I feel with you, Stuart, is, to me, is a sign of the fact that we were probably in the same level of rite of passage, initiatory moment in those days, and allowed access to the Hall of Records
Yeah.
in a very similar manner. So I need to start a response to what you're saying by pointing that out, that we had this very similar experience of apotheosis, of true not only transformation, but transfiguration, a form of deification, right? And that is innate in all human beings. We are all capable of doing that. There are many spaces and edges between what we see and what we don't see that are openly available for exploration. So, Pachakuti and the prophecy of the condor and eagle are tied together. And we understand prophecy, at least in the traditions that I've apprenticed in with my mentors, Don Celso Rojas Palomino of Salas Chiclayo and Benito Corihuaman Vargas of Huasao, Cusco, that prophecies aren't really meant to be fulfilled. They are meant to be honored and modified, managed in a way that the destructive or the less than uplifting results of their doomsday character become allies, become medicines. It's almost like the notion that we must wine and dine our adversary, put them on our side, do not fight against them, but befriend them as they would be something that has the power to shapeshift, to transform themselves into something that is not going to be harmful for individuals and the collective. So the prophecy of Condor and Eagle is simply spoken to give the people from Turtle Island, North America, tribal nations, South American tribal nations, and Central American tribal nations recognition as the carriers of very ancient wisdom, and not just spiritual wisdom, but hydrological wisdom, agricultural wisdom, social wisdom, economic wisdom, wisdoms that maintain the flourishing of these civilizations throughout the Americas, throughout Amerindian lands, in a manner that we can't even approximate replicating with the most advanced scientific instruments that we have now. And so and doing our best so that these ways are not forgotten. And that includes, most importantly, honoring the ancient stories, learning the storytelling techniques, practicing the council processes that were held around fires, and also ritual artistry, becoming a, a medicine ground oneself. So the prophecy of Eagle and Condor has been around for a long, long time. The 144 self-selected rainbow tribe is an emergent, more recent emergent notion that there needs to be a critical mass of human beings that are all awakened to seventh dimensional Christ consciousness simultaneously at 12 distinct sacred sites around the planet at a particular astronomical juncture that is coming in 2029, September 22nd, 2029, that would be able to uplift, to awaken, and really transform all of the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, the despair that right now characterizes human consciousness on a planetary scale. But we need that concentrated power of what we call the Hatun Hampika Mayoks, or the great medicine carriers or containers. And that's what we dedicate the Heart of the Healer Shamanic Mystery School to training, but we're not attached to it being 144,000. We know that that's going to be the critical mass needed for the 8 billion people to activate this great remembering, coming together in sacred membership among our peoples. Yet we are not attached to it being 144,000 exactly, but we are attached to allowing our rainbow bodies to shine and flourish and show themselves proudly throughout the world.
Beautiful. Wow. What a stream of consciousness. Thank you. Do we know, is there a prognostication for December 2029 in relation to acute astrology? Because we know, for example, for the harmonic convergence, 15, 16, 17 August 87, there was this extraordinary grand trine that opened in the heavens. Is this a similar astrological lodestone or star that is opening?
Well, we have, yes, as a matter of fact, a Chascamayo. It's going to come out of the Milky Way, the River of Stars, and NASA has even given it a name. It's called Apophis. It's a asteroid that is a near collision asteroid that is coming in June of 2029. Yet the prophecies of the Alto Misayocs, or of Peru, the more ancient keepers, direct descendants of the Inca, speak of September 22nd, 2029, as the portal, as the interdimensional bridge that is going to be made available for all earnest seekers and initiates of the great work. And that will restore a Hermetic and Gnostic level of learning and growing as a human species on this planet. Yet the power that near collision orb is going to have in terms of influencing our own bioetheric body, as well as propelling an evolutionary imperative in humans, is quite great if we know the practices necessary to cultivate the receptivity that is required during those times of when sky and earth come close and close together. That's what we look for.
Yeah. And of course, this is the definition of your body of work, isn't it? That it's this beautiful experiential development, this evolutionary development of preparing for certain rites of passage, such as this. Am I correct?
You articulated that better than I could. That's exactly what the Heart of the Healer Shamanic Mystery School is about. The heart of the healer. If you break it down, it's THOTH, or Thoth, the thrice great Hermes Trismegistus, which also took on, as you well know, many forms over thousands of years before written history or known history. But the heart of the healer stands, that acronym stands for this: T, trusting soul; H, honoring spirit; O, opening heart; T, transforming mind; and H, healing body. So the altar that we work with has those 5 bodies, those 5 dimensions within it. The body in the south, the heart in the west, spirit in the north, mind in the east, and soul in the center. And as we move in a nautilus type of spiral direction around the altar ground known as the Pachakuti Mesa, a place of great deep transformation, we honor that principle, and we are able to go ahead and bring unification into all 5 bodies. We have 2 other additional bodies that are more aligned with synchronic or vertical spiritual time, but those are reserved for, they cannot be expressed on this call right now.
Yeah. And those of us that have the insight to perceive what you're talking about, we're deeply in honor of that statement. So this is extraordinary. I love the mystery of spirit and how it speaks to us through the great metaphors. Because as you well know, I speak internationally about developing a metaphoric consciousness, and I'm so often looked at with oblique faces by the audience in front of me until I are given a moment or two to be able to expound on what this really means, that we are in peril of losing that extraordinary aspect of our being, where we can see that the great sound became word, that the word is sound, but it's actually this immense energy that pours out of a corridor of light in relation to the Christos and the Sophia aspects. However, that by awakening the metaphoric, we can really truly touch into the awakening of the heart. And because, as you know, the center of my work is really to introduce us all to the fact that we each have a note, a signature sound, which is the song of our soul that arises out of the heart from a physiological point of view, and retuning people back into that, so that we, move away from that level of incoherence that we're doing, all that cognitive dissonance. So at 4:00 this morning, I was awoken by the 12 beings of light that I love speaking with me even at 4:00 in the morning. And I was shown exactly what you've just told us about THOTH. I was shown this literally. That's why I thought, how extraordinary. That's wonderful. I've now got a new acronym for the use of, what we're trying to awaken and instill in a deep remembering within our people's bodies. But also it's a celebration of the master's work. So this this is really uncanny. Could you therefore take us into the deep part of that crucible and tell us why you feel the heart is so significant?
Well, I need to therefore outline the axiom of the Pachakuti Mesa tradition and of the heart of the healer.
Before you go there, Oscar, can you just give us a translation of Pachakuti?
Pachakuti, Pachakuti. Pacha, world, time, space, realm. Bardo, basically state of conscious or realm of consciousness. That's what a pacha is. A pacha is your experience of the multidimensional sphere that you choose as your reality. So it can be used to describe physical spaces, places, times, or spiritual places and times. Kuti, Kuti, means reversal, transformation. So Pachakuti literally translates into cosmic renewal or worldly transformation. So everything is in flux, everything is in change, nothing is static. Evolution does not work in any way that makes things rigid. On the contrary, it wants to breathe freely. It wants to expand and contract and oscillate and move in a manner that is going to be harmonious and beautifying and sacralizing of one's human experience. And that's when you enter into a relationship that becomes a transformative medicine path. So Pachakuti tradition is a lineage that fuses the folk healing practices of northern coastal Peruvian curanderismo with the highland practices of the southeastern Paco tradition of earth honoring rituals, burning rituals, burying rituals, offering them to water. So there's the individual focus of healing, and then we have the planetary involvement of feeding, doing mihushankus, ritually feeding the earth mother in all our relations, her entire web. So when you have a mesa, when you have an altar ground that is modeled or has the imprint of these very ancient teachings in them and all the energies that are associated with each of the directions, and you work it in a, you become the operator in a masterful manner, magic occurs. Magic becomes a commonplace experience, and manifestations of various spirit beings and animal allies and both heavenly and chthonic, more mythic creatures can populate your consciousness. So you need to be very discerning as to who you invite in. You need to choose your tripping partners well, as they say. And so therefore, when you have this multiplicity of assistance that is out there, it's best to learn how to keep it green. Always be a student. Never try to be like Mickey Mouse in the Sorcerer's cartoon, if you remember, that took on certain spells and incantations and worked with talismans without knowing what he was doing, and elicited a maelstrom of destruction around him. And that happens with people's psyches if they're not properly initiated into this work. And that's where our organization, or our organism, really, it's an organism, the Heart of the Healer Shamanic Mystery School comes in. It provides those guidelines. It provides that, ancestrally oriented and sourced tradition for people to not lose their way when they open up to these expanded states of awareness.
Wow, wow. And so you're bringing us right into the very center, the way that the heart is holding all of these extraordinary vectors in its, holding is possibly the wrong word, but it's because it's very fluid, but containing the experience of all these varying vectors. And when you work ritualistically to awaken people's heart, can you perhaps give us a moment of inspiration about what the rituals contain and why ritual is so significant?
Ritual, in the tradition that I honor, is simply learning how to quiet oneself to begin with. In shamanic practices the world over, we understand that everything has a soul, everything has a consciousness. So the first axiom of this work is that consciousness begets matter, that our awareness structures the material universe around us. And the only way to really get in touch with the power behind that realization is to empty and become a hollow bone. And that can only be done by tuning into voice of nature through silence and stillness and quietude. So all ritual must begin with a deep listening before any prayers, before any incantations, decrees, evocations, declarations take place. After that, we understand that language begets reality. So if consciousness begets matter, our words fashion our reality. And that's where we do our prayers. And we tone 3 times aloud or sometimes silently as a silent mantra. Pachamama, Mother Earth, Mama Kia, Grandmother Moon, Wiracocha, originating mystery, Inti, Sun, the Sun, Father Sun, and Quichi, the rainbow body. Those 5 Quechua terms, when chanted and mantralized and done with the fullness of one's love for the work, elevates the space in which healing can take place. The third axiom is that ritual begets relationship. Everything in the natural world, if you notice, is a ritual dance. All relationships, all connections, all networks are born of ritual. The fourth axiom is that nature begets purpose. Observe the natural world and you will find what your purpose is, and both at the cosmic and microcosmic level. And then the most important, which is what you're alluding to in terms of the heart, which is where Munai, the power of deep feeling, compassive love, unlimited in its nature, Munai, the fifth axiom, love begets life. Consciousness begets matter. Language begets reality. Ritual begets relationship. Nature begets purpose. Love begets life. So everything is done as a labor of love in the shamanic lineages that I have had the privilege of apprenticing and now given the opportunity to share with a wider audience around the world.
All that you say is breathtaking and encouraging a deeper breath. It's very, very extraordinary.
So I can go into details of the ritual practices, but first I wanted to emphasize the importance of just being a hollow bone.
Yeah, yeah,
And stilling
yeah,
oneself.
yeah. Because you speak in your book of the hollow bone and the noble death. So I was actually, bringing. It's interesting because much of what you're sharing with us, I sort of webbed out as a possibility. So it's we jointly created a matrix. So we have a great connection going on here. And you've spoken of the hollow bone. Perhaps we should leave noble death for a moment. And if you could take us into, for example, I would love many, many, many people to come to your work. And so if we could have a small description, if that's possible, without moving into any form of dishonoring, because obviously magic happens in the moment, in the holy instant. But if you could provide people with a little bit of an understanding. For me, what ritual does, you see, is to get us deep into our bodies, into stillness. And that's when the magic starts to begin, using 2 words, And so I wonder how you experience the nature. Are you using stillness per se, or are you using a series of sacred passes or any form of movement?
How much time do we have? Because to go into this requires it's teaching, it's a transmission, it's a wisdom transmission. So
Yeah.
I'm a little hesitant to just give you a nutshell description of this, but suffice that it involves breathing techniques, certain mudras, hand postures, learning how to receive and pass forward various vibrational frequencies when it comes to the energetics of the medicine, specific medicine. It includes sacred sound, which you're very familiar with, the use of vowels to interiorize and consonants to exteriorize, and using onomatopoeic language of the ancient ones. which Quechua is one of them, but also Sanskrit and the Aleph base, the language of light, or Hebrew. Those three languages replicate the sounds of creation, as you well know. So all of these combined become a dance, become a devotional expression of one's gratitude that opens up to generosity, or fuels generosity, better said, which opens to grace. So every ritual is really a space in which grace can be bestowed upon the practitioner, and through that, step out of the way, not be identified as the one doing, but only as that instrument of the will of creation.
I knew you'd do it. You did it. Well done. That's a beautiful frame description of the possibilities therein, honoring the sacred aspect and the key element of transcendentalism. And how, coming into the heart, we can find this very precise stillness. I'd love you to take us into a context of reference with the noble death and what is meant by the noble death.
Basically, the noble death is getting to a place where you realize you're not that important. Simply put, and that whether you want to be on this beautiful planet Earth with all its travails and problems and conflicts and divisiveness and other forms of unsavory realities that populate human awareness right now, it's a huge gift. It's a true sacred gift to have incarnated during these times. And we understand that finding what one loves to do will always result in being good at whatever you're doing, right? So finding something that you love, if it's baking or if it's going out on a nice evening walk, but do it fully with gusto. That's a ritual practice. That becomes a ritual practice. Of course, there are much more traditional, precise, elaborate ceremonial arts that we don't have time to get into, that have specific outcomes that are very necessary right now. But ultimately, this is about letting go of all craving for approval and control by honoring that death is a portal, a gateway to spiritual life, and not just physical death, but psychological death.
Yeah.
That's what the Pachakuti Mesa tradition helps people do, much like meditation would.
Beautiful. And a transition away from the trickster ego. So we become completely hollow to receive all divine impulses. Amazing, amazing. It's I'm very rarely voiceless, very rarely wordless, but the extraordinary world that you're opening for us is having a very profound effect on me. So I'm observing in a position of stillness and moving slightly into a role of being your interlocutor. But it's very, very extraordinary the way that you open up the doorways, the gates, the portals. So I really want you to feel that appreciation from me. The noble death. Wow. Okay, so I'd love to touch into the work of universal shamanism, and specifically the wonders of what you're doing in connection with the meeting of the great tribes through the UN.
Well, the association with the UN was in my earlier phase, as a teacher. I'm still connected to the spiritual caucus of the UN by being an evolutionary leader together with various other members, well-known authors and teachers of spiritual and consciousness expansion around the world. Yet I am not participating as a representative of the Heart Island traditions at the UN anymore. That said, the urge that lives within my heart to help revitalize these ancestral wisdom teachings as well as healing rituals is very, very strong. And that is why I founded the Heart of the Healer. It was the Heart of the Healer, and then it became the Heart of the Healer Shamanic Mystery School. Because we are approaching a state right now where rather than political change, we need an honoring and a return to soul living, to soul craft, to learning how soul, which is imagination, is really at the core of all innovation, of all discovery, of all revolutionary advances in the world. And to this time, at this moment, it's all been outwardly, it's all been external, it's all been material, and we've had extraordinary, breakthroughs in the medical sciences and technologies and things of that nature. Yet, what happens with the advent of AI when this being that is giving feedback as to your own relationship with reality doesn't have a soul, is really not consciousness. It may seem like it's conscious, but consciousness really is born from the source of creation, which is love, Munai. And I find it a great challenge to go ahead and situate the unbridled transformations that are occurring in our world right now in a shamanic way that is going to help people wake up to the fact that they must get off of their devices. They must, who am I to say they must? I highly suggest that we fast from news, we fast from the internet, we fast from anything having to do with AI-generated information or misinformation. And once again, commune with the greatest internet of all, which is the starry canopy above us and the cycles, patterns, tonalities, rhythms of the natural world that are beneath our feet. If we are able to go ahead and just praise and be devoted to the majesty of how our Mother Nature, Mama Pacha, works her magic, and see it imprinted in the above, and realizing that it's a mirror, that there's nothing, the above, the below, the within, the without, self, others, we are just reflections of each other. That is where the great work that I'm dedicated to doing is where I find most needed in the world.
Exquisite. If we were standing in front of a great magician, and the magician could provide us with a tool, a word, a sensation, an experience that would bring about great alignments, great harmonies creating, and you are asked, my son, what would you like? What would be your question? What would be your answer?
To fully and inextricably experience myself with every breath, whether during sleep or waking consciousness, as the I am.
Exquisite. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Gosh, we have so many corollaries. There's such coherence with, even though we arise out of very, very different areas of the world, with the information and wisdom that has been shared with us, all the many stories and experiences. The I am, just exquisite. Yeah.
We have a technique in the Pachakuti Mesa tradition in which we chant I on the first breath and am on the second. It's starting with the ah to the e because we're using the Latin vowels, and then am is ah to the m. So we form the ascending triangle and the descending triangle, much like the Sri Yantra here, the symbol of cosmic equilibrium in our Anahata chakra, the place where we can offer bhakti or agape and love. So when we do the I am 3 times, it just aligns you perfectly, brings you right in. And you having the voice that you have, I would love to hear you tone I on the first breath and am on the second breath, and crystallize that understanding, that gnosis.
I will do this, but not now.
Okay.
At some
It's
point in the future.
something to consider.
It's it really exquisite, yeah. And I promise you that I will do this, and I need to prepare myself. I'm
understand.
in a slightly different role, engaging in all sorts of other activities in the healing of the sick today. So I came quite quickly to our conversation, and I have a being here that I need to address in a moment by reaching out to them. So I'm not fully present in the way that I know I can be for the honoring of what you're suggesting. So bless you for that. Oscar, I'm very aware of the fact that our time is coming very, very swiftly to a close. And I'd love to know how people can reach you so that they can engage not just in your books, but also in all of the profound experiences that you open for us. What's the best way of doing that? I mean, I know that Ryan will put on the screen your website.
Yes, the easiest way is
way?
really to go to the website, www.heartofthehealer.org. You'll find a plethora of opportunities for apprenticeship, as well as readings, my books, other books, and an extraordinary virtual community of heartfelt earth stewards that have awoken to their destiny. Our little logo is, or our saying is, in our past lies our destiny, right? So therefore, it's really about connecting with what is old, and in the Inca way of understanding time, realize that the future is really the past becoming present. It's a little paradox, but that's it. Now, also you can, if anybody likes my books, especially Shamanism through Sacred Stories, you can go ahead and put a little commentary at Amazon.com or a little review. That would be very appreciative to get the good word out. And but www.heartofthehealer.org would be a wonderful way to become acquainted with my work.
Fantastic. And what's your most key project in this time?
Right now is training a cadre of teachers. We have 24 at present, so that they can join the critical mass necessary for the Great Awakening. And we're doing that at sacred sites around this country and in South America, and maybe in your part of the woods, which I've done pilgrimage to in the past, which I loved.
Yeah. And because you're based in the United States.
Correct. Yes.
But you travel frequently.
Correct. Yes. This year has been a whirlwind. And yes, so I'm going to continue to do some traveling. both to do personal ceremony at sacred sites and also to serve my community of practitioners around the world.
Yes. Well, if I can assist in any way of opening doors in the United Kingdom, although
that's wonderful. I'll remember that.
really, and I already have vision of you in Glastonbury in the future, and I have a feeling that there will be a possibility of us linking. There's also another person that I would love to introduce you to who is very extraordinary and very practiced, a woman who is very practiced in the traditions of South America, who's been well taught by great shaman trainers, great wisdom keepers, and is now sharing the language in Europe and elsewhere in the world, who is very extraordinary, who is a very profound female medicine keeper. So her ceremonials are just breathtaking. However, so I see something happening. Having said that, the majority of my clients are US. So I used to spend a lot of time in the US up until COVID, and now, of course, increasingly more online. So, Oscar, this has been extraordinary. Really, I'm very breathtaken by the whole experience, and I want to thank you from a very, very deep part of me, but also on behalf of the community that I know are going to be lapping up the wonders that you've communicated with us, not just simply the word that you've spoken in the moment, but also all of the vistas that you've opened. There's everything that you say has this wonderful reverberating feature that opens up the transcendental corridors of light, so that we begin to see all of our Stargate people, all of our Stargate beings, all of our star system dwellers, opening up this wonderfully great understanding that we need at this time, that we're all cosmic citizens. So thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to reveal before we reach into a point of completion?
Right action born of compassionate spiritual wisdom unites. Through the simple act of being still in body, calm in mind, and peaceful in breath, graceful surrender to the blessings of perfection within the present moment nurtures our soul and shapes who we are in the world. That I read. It is a quote of mine that is on the Heart of the Healer website. Thank you deeply for allowing the space to share my vision, my work, my presence as a humble holographic projection by the name of Don Oscar.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And also, I really honor all of the beings of light that have been with you and that have been sharing impulses, rhythms, harmonies with us. It's been very extraordinary.
Just take it in. They're all over here, in physical form as well as in spiritual presence.
Yeah. I'm deeply humbled, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be in the receiving mode of all of the wisdoms that you've shared with us. And as I was saying, all of the spiritual beings that have been with you. And I'm deeply honored and very humbled by the experience. So, ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful journey. Please do, when you get to hear this, see this, feel this, and how it takes you into the silence of hollow bone and into a recognition of the death of the ego so that you can live more nobly. Please do write comments, tell us how you feel. And, we're going to be inviting Oscar back, obviously, because he has an entire retinue of extraordinary stories and information to provide us. And so I hope you will come back.
It'll be an honor.
I knew you would.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you either here or in England sometime.
Yeah. So I would love you to stay where you are for a moment while we just close down, because my tech manager will just close down. And everybody, namaste, namaste, namaste. Thank you for being here. Much love go with you. Thank you, Ryan.